Welcome to the Rediscovering Your Creative Self podcast, where you get a weekly dose of inspiration and motivation for your creative practice.
Mistakes are part of the process. If you fear making mistakes or you do things to avoid making mistakes, you're actually hindering your process, not helping your process. And what do I mean by that? All people, whether we're artists or we're chefs or we're professional athletes, you name it, the people that are the best at what they do have actually made the most mistakes. Why? Because they've stepped back up to the plate. So making mistakes has two kinds of outcomes. We can make a mistake and we can learn something from that. That learning process puts us in a different position, and we are therefore able to make better decisions in our next move. The second thing that mistakes do is it allows us to discover new things. You know, one of the things as an artist and as a mixed media artist that does these experimental techniques that I've developed myself through the power of mistakes. The power of mistakes. That sounds very weird, right? The power of mistakes. Seeing mistakes in a different light instead of seeing them as something to be afraid of. Oh, I don't want to mess up my piece, or I don't want to, this or that. Instead, seeing it as a superpower to learn new things. So one of the things, like I said, I've developed new techniques because of mistakes. I was working on something and I thought something was going to go one way and it went a completely different way. And that different way required me to solve a problem that I'd never encountered before. And through that solving of that problem, I was able to go, well, that was cool. Didn't know that could come out. Didn't know that, would work out that way. I'm going to use that next time. And now that has been a little nugget in my toolbox. Okay. Power of mistakes. The other thing is when you see mistakes as a power, in other words, I'm only going to get better. I'm going to either learn from it or I'm going to discover something from it. And if you see them in that light, then the fear of making mistakes kind of goes away. The other thing that I want to say is about challenging yourself. Maybe it's not every day. Maybe it's just once a week, once a month, but challenge yourself to do something that would scare you. In other words, it's going to move you outside your comfort zone artistically. And it's something that you don't know that you have full confidence that you can achieve, but do it anyways. Because that's another way to figure out those two things that we talked about before. You're going to push yourself. You're either going to learn something or you're going to discover something in the process. So put it into your mix. Something, like I said, it could be once a month, once a week, once a day. Do something that scares you a little bit. And I think it will allow you to do two things, actually. One, the learning and the discovery, but also the way the human brain works. It always has this pain and pleasure thing that it does. So when we expose ourselves to the things that scare us in small doses consistently over time, we are no longer scared to do the things that we may have been scared to do before. And we also realize, hey, this wasn't as bad as I thought. And because I exercised those muscles and I exercised that brain pain and pleasure thing, I then have changed the way my brain feels comfortable. So something that technically scared you before isn't scary. And then we even forget that we were scared because we just can do it. So one of the things, like I said, that I want you to think about is to incorporate something that scares you. And the other thing I want you to do is when you feel, oh no, I think I'm going to make a mistake. Okay. Move forward with that. Move forward with that because that's how we learn. And if it is something that you're doing for a client or for a major gallery show, do those. I think it's going to scare me, or, I'm afraid to make mistakes. Do it in your sketchbook. Use your sketchbook. Use just, for play paintings that you're doing. Use those as the breeding ground. Okay. So you don't have to up the ante so much where you've got to fix something. And I've done it. I've done it. Fix something where it's going to go in a book. And now you got to figure out how to fix it. I put myself into those positions. Probably not the best idea, but this is how I am. But you can do it on things that don't matter as much. Okay. So those are the places, have those opportunities. I now have every Thursday being sketchbooking and experiment day. Those are when I'm experimenting. Those are when I'm using, non-expensive surfaces, scrap surfaces, sketchbook surfaces, paint that's been left over, extra medium, extra gel, throwing it here, throwing there, trying it this. And I have so many of those surfaces and sketchbooks. And as I told you, in my studio, I'm always painting boxes and enclosures and extra clay. So there's always something that I'm just doing, and I'm not thinking too much about it. I don't have a lot invested into it. And that just becomes ongoing. So out of today, there's two things I want you to think about is mistakes are your friend. Okay. They're not your enemy. And when it comes to things that scare you, give it a try and do it in a safe space so that it's not something that you're going to, be stressed out about. Do it in a safe space so that nobody even has to see it, right? Nobody even has to see it. It's just for you. But with that, as always, create from the heart.
This audio series is part of my Navigating the Labyrinth of the Creative Mind Patreon endeavor. The site uniquely intermixes self-reflection and personal storytelling with exploratory mixed media techniques and expressive approaches to art making, elevating the creative consciousness and guiding each person on his or her own path to discovering the creative spark that resides within. Check us out at www.patreon.com/Lisa L. Cyr, and that's spelled CYR.